Now, what is Xenoblade 3's best scene for every single chapter in the game? Well, that's exactly what we're here for, because as we know, Xenoblade has some incredible cutscenes, easily top level for JRPGs across the entire franchise. Also, this video will not contain feature redeemed, because I feel like that could be a video in and of itself, so the same will be done with Feature Connected and Torna the Golden Country. And it would really mean a lot if you guys would subscribe, because I have a lot more Xenoblade content cooking big time. So let's try and see if we can hit 3,000 subscribers by the end of July, and if we do, I have some special stream ideas for some Xenoblade themed tier lists we can all do together live. I think that would be fun, like ranking every Xenoblade 3 hero or ranking every Xenoblade battle theme. You guys interested now? Hey, hit the subscribe button. More details when we hit 3K, so let's do it. So chapter 1, we start off so strong, and it was so difficult to choose because this chapter 1 I consider to be the closest to perfect chapter in the entire game, and actually the strongest first chapter of any Xenoblade. But the one that is the designated winner of the best scene of chapter 1 is called Inherited Hope. Now this scene has 3 sections. Now as great as them finishing off the Mobius D fight was, and getting to see all the consoles when D summoned the other Mobius and told them about Ouroboros, honestly the real reason why I chose this as the winner is because of that middle section, being Guernica's parting words into his death and off-seeing. Now hot take, I know a lot of people liked Vandam and Xenoblade 2, but personally I feel like his influence kind of fell flat after he died, which is why the execution of Guernica's character and his influence upon Ouroboros and especially the city had so much more impact and long-lasting influence. It gave us a really strong way to connect with Monica later on in chapter 5 and beyond, his being a really big inspiration to the Ouroboros candidates, and even when it comes to the hero Gray, you can just see how strongly and fondly Gray talks about him, about his best friend. They fought on the front lines together, but for this scene in particular, it gives us new looks at the cast's nature outside of their feelings and thoughts of war and hatred, because even from jump, they give this man that they've never met so much patience and respect due to how he just gave his own life for them. And it's not even exclusively their words, but it's their expressions that speak. It's an incredibly emotionally charged scene of existential reflection and confusion, because they don't even fully understand the gravity of what he just did for them, nor what they just committed to, all with the song A Life Woven Together playing for the very first time. For Guernica, somebody who is neither Kavesi nor Agnian, so where could their malice even be aimed here? Now there's 2 characters in particular I noticed show subtle attributes of their true selves, and honestly on the first go around we don't notice them either, but going back they give you context and we realize they are foreshadowing. I'm talking like heavy foreshadowing too. This isn't anything light. But the 2 I spied were Eunie and Mio. For Eunie, it was the part after they take off Guernica's mask and they see his face that his plan was also a success. It was just her one line of
"What plan?"
The way she says it gives us so much confusion, yet real focus on understanding how Guernica could have possibly been driven to do what he did. I mean, just look at her. You can see how heavily she was visually affected by his kindness to them. But also in that same face, I can see frustration that he's now dying without knowing much about him. So she craves to get to know what she can in the time that he has left. And there's proof she's feeling this way, because later on, before the scene where everyone changes clothes, there's an optional scene where you can go up to Guernica's clothes with his dog tag, and she mentions how it was great to find out his name because she hated the idea of not even knowing who he was. And that really shocked Noah, actually, surprisingly so. And of course, earlier scenes show that Eunie's not all brash. She's actually very caring and an emotionally driven person. But this is a serious situation. Really knowing how to make them feel open about expressing their feelings, voicing their thoughts, and how to handle them together, even if she may not have the entire answer either, or if it's just difficult. She even does it in her talk with Lange in chapter 3 post Mobius Yorin fight, and she does it with Monica in her Ascension question about reminding her to think about what to do after the war is over, and that she's able to think about her life that far ahead. And she does it with Taion so many times during the game, and mainly for him, but she doesn't start doing that till after he does it for her in chapter 3, which I really appreciate that aspect of her receiving what she always gives to others, and it brings those 2 closer together. Now for Mio, oh baby, this got layers. Okay, I'm gonna need you guys to do me a favor. I need you to look at Mio's face in this first line from Guernica when he asks about her lifespan.
That mark there, late 10th term, eh? 3 months left till your homecoming, that about right?
Okay, you guys got that one? Now look at Mio's reaction when Guernica mentions them holding the torch.
You guys want to survive. Live on. Hold the torch.
Did you see that difference? I noticed the faces the first time, but I never would have understood the context or what they meant until I went back again in subsequent playthroughs and really looked. The first one is like more of a slightly frustrated, don't remind me. He really noticed that, and he's right type face. But then yet when he asked him if they want to live on, you could see how unsure she looks. Even her eyebrows raised in a very nervous manner compared to her like more flatter eyebrows in the first reaction. And that means so much and is so important to Mio's character arc, because as we know and even learned by the end of chapter 1, she's pretty indifferent about living longer. If the campfire scene at the end of chapter 1 was the planting, then this is the seed of that character arc for her. And then as time goes on, she continues to get more and more conscious of her dwindling mark up to her boiling point in chapter 4, all because she is gaining the desire to live while steadily losing her light. And as I sweetly allow Guernica to just spill everything he needs to tell them without interruption, imparting his and the world's necessary will against Mobius on them, he turns into golden light and we see the very first off-seeing duet. But yeah, what an incredible singular scene. Now on to chapter 2. Now, can y'all hit the subscribe for noticing those Mio expressions? I mean, look at them. Yeah, go ahead and click that sub for the one time. It's easy. It's right there. It's right there. By the way, don't think chapter 7 is going to be the end of this, because after that, I'll be doing a speed run segment of all the honorable mentions of the non-winners for the chapters, alright? But chapter 2 is where things heat up a lot. But this chapter 2 segment will be kind of special because it's actually a tie between the two scenes, Noah's blade and cutting down the flame clock. But let's start with Noah's blade. For those that don't remember, it's a scene where Mio is asking about his blade and Noah tells the story of how it all went down. Now I'm gonna be real with you, all the parts before their crew meet up with Riku in his shop are all fluff, and I'm not caring about it in this instance. I get it has some purpose for Garvo's relationship with them and how that can coincide with Lance's side story, but that's not why I made the cut. Now the entire scene with Riku and them in his workshop, now that is why. It's our first real strong potent Riku scene and establishes why he's really with them outside of being a mechanic for Colony 9, and establishes his place in the story for them. It shows how Riku cares deeply about all of them, and especially Noah, and how they face the reality of their world. He may seem blunt about it, but that's exactly what they need in order to survive. Standing still spells death. Refusing to adapt only leads you to inevitably fail. That's why when Riku begins to tell Noah about Lucky 7 and Noah rejects it, that's when Riku had to turn it up and start hitting him with the bars. Noah had no actual response. It's because he had to expose Noah's real feelings and motivations, and that's what makes this scene phenomenal. If they don't fight, then they can't survive. That line I'll explain in a second. Then even when Noah says he doesn't need to use Lucky 7 for that, Riku exposes Noah for intentionally not calling his own blade. One very important thing to realize here is that Noah not summoning his own blade is huge and a big problem. Even in training, the soldiers use their real blades, and this was the day before the trial we see them in versus Garvo and his crew in chapter 1. Noah never would have been able to truly fight if Riku didn't expose him. Noah wasn't even intending on calling his own blade because, like Riku said, he knew Noah was able to, but he just doesn't have the spirit of desire for fighting. And to be real with you, just leaving your gang in the dust like that, not summoning your own blade, not being prepared, that's pretty messed up, Noah. However, I do get what you think, and that's exactly why Riku tells him that thinking of self alone is way of coward, even if he does understand Noah's feelings. And this dialogue from Riku is top tier, but what Noah says in response is one of my favorites in the game. He says that he's afraid, not of fighting, but because of how brutal and relentless the world is, and of what they all might become as a result. And Lance, he has no response. Eunie and Yoran still just stay silent. And I love that line so much because it really gives me such huge Miyabi vibes. That's who Noah reminds me of in this moment. Because in Mio's side story, Miyabi talks about how she's not afraid of fighting, but just to take other people's lives, and she's surprised it comes so easy to everyone else. And for those that don't know me, I love Miyabi so much, but I'll talk more about that later. I'll get the chance to. And Noah's words right then is what makes Riku realize that he is the hero he's been looking for ever since the era of Future Redeemed. And the scene that tied with this was cutting down the flame clock, and honestly, y'all know what scene this was. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a scene where they fight Mobius K and his Piranhas, awaken the last two Ouroboros forms. Noah unsheathes Lucky 7 for the first time, Weight of Life plays for the first time, and it's just incredible. Mio ranking up her social link with Noah by sticking by him even though he fears killing everybody if he destroys the flame clock. Then of course the beautiful colors, the lighting, the particle effects, and this is just one of those examples of how I feel like Xenoblade has some of the best music syncing for the cutscenes in video games, period. But yeah, of course this deserved a spot. Now let's move on to chapter 3. So chapter 3 is called Sophronia's, and this is where the game expands heavily in story, character progressions, and especially gameplay. The best scene of chapter 3 goes to Eunie's nightmare. Now the biggest part of the reason why I chose this was because I genuinely feel like this was the biggest turning point in the game when it came to the presentation of the really strong interactions between our main cast of characters and growing a web of relationships between all of them, whether it was with their Ouroboros pair partner or not. And there's so many obvious but also subtle details that really make this scene so awesome and so pretty and wholesome. And it's really because of how the game presents both Eunie and Taion to the players individually as well as towards each other that makes it so impactful now and going towards the future. Before this point, Taion and Eunie aren't exactly on the same page with each other, but they clearly don't dislike the other. They just don't say more than they have to, or they just indirectly roast the other person. And because of how the game is structured, by this point the characters get a pretty balanced spread of wealth, but from what I've seen, Eunie or Noah is most of people's favorites. Because of the game still being early, when you get a strong chapter opening with an unexpected character, in this case Taion, then a huge plot point of Eunie having memories of what seems to be a previous life, and her mental state is super impacted, which shows a fearful side of her that we haven't seen up to this point, even if she tries to carry it in stride or hide it. It really shifts both the tone and the direction of where you think the path of these characters are going to go. There's an increasing threat to Taion's home colony coming at their lives. He's clearly growing in fear, or at least dread as well. So to see him take such care to recognize Eunie sharing a similar dread with her for whatever reason, as well as physical tremors, and decides to get everyone to rest for the night, and he makes her herbal tea around the campfire, goes such a long way to their dynamic and relationship. And I can't stress enough just how important it was to have someone out of the main two of the main characters have the first really strong one-to-one character interaction in the game to an ascended level. And the best part about this scene is that you could tell there was never any actual dislike between them, because the way they begin to talk feels so natural. Even as Eunie mentions the tea smelling good and Taion just goes obviously, then explaining what it does. Then they kind of take turns poking fun at each other, and then they bring the callback to their hobbies. It's all so wholesome as they open up to each other about their fears of fighting, losing their friends, losing themselves, wondering what it's like right before you die, whether it be in combat or the slow progression of your life flame running out, as loops back around to Mio. It all means so much to show their personalities, as well as how they really feel about each other. They aren't against each other. They don't desire to butt heads. They don't desire to be at odds. They want to come together. They want to be close like this. So this scene does an incredible job at not only bridging the gap between a still fan favorite up to this point and after in Eunie, but an unsuspecting character to get such growth and such development by this point that over time it gets so much more progression and love and has impact on others. It really just opens up and flourishes and blossoms, and it gets so much appreciation from the other characters in this game and even from the players themselves, all to my boy Taion. That's my #1 favorite character in Xenoblade 3. Then Eunie's number 2. Then Riku's number 3, but that's a different story. Chapter 4 time. Chapter 4 is a pretty different tone from chapter 3 in some ways. There's a lot more drama in a good way. It's actually a tie between the two scenes called The Gift of Life and Ever Dwindling Time. And this is going to be the last tie, I promise, but there's a specific reason why this one was a tie in particular. Now, I knew from the beginning making this that the scene Ever Dwindling Time, which is the scene when Noah and Mio exchange flutes, would win. But I also felt that The Gift of Life not only was beyond deserving, but it also seems a bit underrated given its huge importance for Mio and her multiple big moments later on in chapter 4, but also because this directly allows the scene Ever Dwindling Time to occur in the first place. But let's start with The Gift of Life. This is the scene when Eunie, Mio, and Manana are talking under the tree. Not only do I really appreciate this scene because we get a kind of unorthodox trio, not simply because of Manana being there, which I really like that she's there and gets a good moment in this scene, but we never really see Eunie and Mio talk to this level of importance that they have up to this point. The presentation is very nice, starting off the scene with some good humor, wit, and wholesomeness. After Manana mentions that the Bright Fig still needs another year to be ready after turning yellow, Mio mentioned that they can come back next year. What's interesting to note is that looking at Manana's face, she instantly notices Mio's phrasing and points it out. Which Mio, of course, tries to slap a band-aid on it just real quick. And as soon as Eunie realizes what's going on, she tells Mio something I absolutely love her for saying for so many reasons. And that's not to be so detached about it because it'll get everyone feeling guilty. And to not say don't mind her, because of course they will. She's their friend. Now, the reason I think this was an excellent thing to do, both by Eunie being the perceptive and people person she is, and continuing into the rest of their talk, is that it exposes and helps Mio grow from an apparent character flaw she's had up to this point. And when I say character flaw, I don't say that as in, oh, this is a flaw that shouldn't exist. I say it as this is a part of her she can grow from, and it'll escalate her character in execution and quality. It only becomes something I dislike when it either becomes addressed so late or never at all. Honestly, that's a big issue I have with Pyra's character for a similar thing. She's really similar to Mio in how she is secretive, sometimes unmoving in her choices, keeps her emotions too locked in, which, like I said, only becomes distasteful for me if it takes too long to address, if at all. Even when Bridget calls her out on it, it still wasn't until a bit later her true reasoning for going with Rex all this time was revealed. But that's a story for another video maybe. And there's something big that kind of differentiates Noah and Mio. Now, Noah had Chris, who also helped him get an enlightening on the world similar to what Miyabi did for Mio. The difference is, although she taught Mio how to help those who died to contribute to the world, as well as teaching her the importance of the Offseer and how they impact the living, Mio never really learned how to handle dealing with her own dwindling lifespan, especially after Miyabi died. Effectively, she was never truly living for herself. And it was so heartbreaking when she admits this, but it's understandable. But unlike Noah, Mio, she's not a shy person, but she really closed herself off to all real close attachments and feeling, as well as she puts it, locking down her emotions towards suffering and survivor's guilt. So although she never strayed from communication, she wasn't open with her feelings or other feelings like Noah was, at least to a personal degree with other people. And it was really heartwarming for Manana and Eunie to really help her open up about all of these things, her attitude towards her lifespan, getting her to say how she truly feels about it. And then just with no music in the background for this scene, she plays Miyabi's off-seeing tune. And it's lovely that Eunie and Manana just don't interrupt, and they really let Mio control the pace of the dialogue and the conversation even after she finishes playing the tune. And then a huge turning point of the conversation. Eunie questions, what if Miyabi comes back as an enemy? And this is where Mio just breaks. This was where the tide of the whole entire game after this point changes. The reason I consider that specific part to be so important is that it does two huge things. One, it improves the storytelling when the game is able to point out potential story beats that could seem like an obvious prediction for the players and addressing it far ahead of time, giving them more room to both mix things up and break the ankles of the players, which is smart right in the chapter after Yoren's reveal as Mobius. And two, it frees Mio from the chain she put her own self in. And from this point forward, even though technically in the chapter over halfway through the game, it doesn't feel that way because the real climax hasn't hit yet, and the amount of content disparity after this point is still so much that it really isn't halfway over. And after this, Mio starts to change so much. She starts to open up, she starts to vent, she starts to crack, and she really starts to let her feelings just crash out. And it is not easy at all. But this scene is amazing in how it perfectly transitioned into what's probably most people's favorite scene of this chapter, the absolutely stellar scene, Ever Dwindling Time. Now, if you weren't sold on Noah and Mio's characters before this point, or at the most not shipping them yet, then with this scene, there's a 99% chance you now have been converted to one or both. But yeah, on behalf of Eunie and Manana, sorry Noah, but you're gonna have to hold this one. And because of you fumbling, it actually made a great character progression moment for both of you, both individually and as a dynamic, because not only is this scene due to Mio's emotions being fully breached, but it's Noah's first real test of characterization. So it's not just a gorgeous scene as far as visuals in both nighttime and daybreak, but it's beautiful in terms of payoff as well as new setup. Now, this scene does a fantastic job of more so humbling Noah because he feels that he has such a firm grasp and understanding of people's feelings and emotions, which, to be honest, he does, but not entirely. Mio presses back on Noah pretty hard about his lack of understanding how she feels, and feels as though Noah is taking her anxiety too lightly, not being able to be solved by just taking it easy for the night and carrying it over to the next day. Which, when he says that, that's what really makes it carry over to the next day, because Mio ensures that he knows that he doesn't get it, so Noah feels lost. And then that's when she runs away. And then Senna comes through, testing Noah's understanding of Mio's venting as her best friend, as her homegirl, to which he still doesn't fully entirely get, but Senna kind of helps him along because that's her bestie. And if Mio can't fully open up to her on everything, then Noah should be there too, which makes sense because some things you'll feel inclined to tell other friends, whereas other things will go to different ones. But as bittersweet as some of it is, it all feels real and it doesn't feel overdone or too heavy-handed, even with the Lance and Taion dialogue afterwards. Great interaction, by the way. But the real excellence of the scene comes from the daybreak portion. Also, can I just say, Eunie peeking over at Taion, then playfully walking over to him just to talk was so cute, by the way. I love that. Anyways, one thing I love about this game is the denial of people's typical use of realistic for things in media. People usually use that in a way to express things having more negative connotations than people would like to think, but to me, realistic or realism should go both ways that can go nicely and positive, or bittersweet or negative. They all exist in reality, which is why I love how this scene is one of the biggest markers in the game for its realistic use of an argument between mature people. And as Noah and Mio meet back up in the morning, both of them admit their faults in handling their discourse the night before, because fault does lie on both of them, even if it isn't an easy thing to address and especially hard for Mio. But we get the daybreak backdrop, the easy melody, the swells of the music as they start to get on the same page, the very sweet and understanding nature between each other as they begin to really let themselves get attached to one another, as well as not pushing any blame on the other for no reason, and certainly not rushing this. Mio pouring her heart out about Miyabi and her own survivor's guilt, and how she'd like Noah to carry on that flute's memory, and there's just so much love in this incredible scene. Nobody can deny it. Favorite line of this probably being from Mio in response to Noah being surprised that there were still things to learn about her after seeing her memories. She says, well, of course, how can you understand things I didn't understand myself? You're not going to pick up on everything. Then they have this wonderful back and forth of just getting each other, and the music just keeps rising and escalating, and amazing stuff, man. Also gonna break the mold real quick. I'm gonna put the first honorable mention right here. It's gonna be the scene, Our Dream Will Not Perish. And yes, that is the Ethel and Kamaravi's sacrifice quote unquote scene. Choreography, complex thematic focus, character extension and character evolutions, and it just feels so dramatic and feels so epic. From the fight to Mio's punching a pianos interlinked, to Ethel and Kamaravi just living out their dream, not letting anyone tell them otherwise, regardless of what quote unquote logic would say to do. They just follow their hearts. And to anybody that says that this scene didn't make any sense or that it was a pointless death, you really don't understand what they just did. A huge theme of this game is that they're trying to break out of the fact that somebody else is trying to tell them how they should live their lives and take away their rights or take away their meaning or place some meaning on their lives for them, when everybody should have the right to choose. And in Ethel and Kamaravi's last turn, they finally had the chance to be free and express their dream and to fight each other to the death and express their emotions and care and love for each other in a way that they only knew how to do so. And it's beautiful and it makes sense, although you could say, I mean, they didn't have to die, but it's not about you, it's about what they want to do. They wanted to go out like this, they wanted to go out the happiest that they ever could, and they did it. Excellent scene, and the complexity in that really lets our main cast stew over it and never forget it. And now on to the revolutionary chapter 5. The chosen best scene for chapter 5 may surprise some people, but it's going to be A New Life is Born, and that is the scene with the baby inside the maternity ward. You should be able to understand why I picked this. I love that once Monica relays to them the truth of their world, the cycle of rebirth, how far the war has stretched, the shackles of Mobius that were placed on them, the tasks they've taken up to set rights to the world. Now it was time to give them more reason to fight, something more tangible, something so they can grasp onto and really see with their eyes what they're truly fighting for, something they've never seen for the very first time, a life being born. And then the mother and father very kindly let them look at their baby, touch her gently, let them grab her fingers, and their reactions are all just so precious, especially Taion's pure glee, Senna's sweet smile, and Mio most of all just seems like she's about to break down from pure sweetness at first, and just continues to melt into the warmth of the baby's feel over time. Also, Riku, you are definitely faking this, my boy. Sorry, just had to say it. I played Future Redeemed, you know about this. And oh man, this next scene, when it's Noah's turn to touch the baby, he just smiles and looks at Mio, and then she looks back at him in surprise, and then her face just completely softens. And can I just say, Lord have mercy, the look Mio gives him is so loving and enticing. I was just like, my Lord Mio, please chill out for a second. That was pure bliss and romance. The fact that Monica gets to explain this to people that have never known this type of world exists makes it all worth it for her and now to them, to protect new life being born into this world. And I feel like some people misunderstand Monica in this scene, because I've seen people say some silly things that Monica's explanation here is too much sounding like people's only purpose to getting into a relationship is to have kids, or too heteronormative. And I just think you aren't listening to her phrasing, or you're getting the wrong message entirely. She's not saying human beings' true nature is to have kids. She's saying human beings' true nature is to be free, to be brought into this world, not in tubes and pods, and to end up soldiers fighting the entire duration of your 10-year lives, but with the freedom to choose your path and destiny, and even your partner, whoever it may be. And she even says those that find a spouse, not that you have to find a spouse or find a spouse in a way that that's the only early walk of life for people, or like that's the default. She doesn't say it like that. It refers to spouses as partners in romance in a general sense too. I feel like these things should be obvious given her phrasing, but then I gotta remember, people don't read, people don't listen, so you know. But like I was saying earlier, I appreciate that she gave them this positive incentive, but also now after that segment does not forget the mature side of things and how at the end of the day people still pass away, but the memories of those that die are never to be forgotten. Even if it may be hard, we love those that earn it and cherish the people around us and let them know that we get to enjoy the gift of life that they've had this entire time. Maybe sad that they go, but we get to love them in their departure. And let's not forget how funny it was when the doctor asks who wants to know how babies are made. They all immediately raised their hands and were smiling. Boy, they have no idea what he's about to spit at them. And thus we move on to chapter 6. Now chapter 6, opposite to chapter 5 being bottom heavy, is top heavy, but to what will probably be a surprise to a lot more people than chapter 5's choice, the winner of the best scene of chapter 6 is My Days with Miyabi part 2. And before y'all say anything, I can hear your keyboards right now. Yes, I know this is from Mio's side story. However, her side story is a mandatory quest to progress with the main story, so I consider this viable for chapter 6's scenes to be eligible to be picked. Funnily enough, this was actually the inspiration for this video, because I knew that this would be the winner for chapter 6 from jump. And for those that have stayed this far in the video, I have a little treat, a little sneak peek for you guys. I have 3 more Xenoblade projects lined up after this one, and one of them is a really big tribute video to the Offseers. I haven't finalized the name yet, but it'll be something like the beauty and brilliance of the Offseer in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. You interested? Hey, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified as soon as that video goes up. So me talking about this scene now will be a good sneak peek of what that video will kind of be like, but it'll be expanded so much more. Because honestly, I'm not exactly 100% sure, but if I were to choose one scene in the entire game that may be my favorite overall, it might be this one, to be honest with you. And the reason for that? Miyabi. And before we get to the main meaty portion of the scene that I like to gush over, we get to see this part of the two of them off-seeing after some battle, but here Mio isn't even playing her flute. Not only are Mio's lips noticeably not open or pursed like Miyabi's are to show she's playing, even though she's still disguising it using her fingers, you only hear one flute, whereas every other duet in the game it's set to where you can hear both flutes very clearly. And I noticed that on my very first run. You can go and check. I'm gonna put the link to my Xenoblade 3 stream playlist down below. You can find the VOD, it's right there. And when I realized that, I was like, wow, she has it bad, as in her hating being an officer that much. But that made this upcoming portion of the scene so much more powerful. So the evening before then, we get this part of Mio talking to Nadia about her team up with Miyabi. I'm honestly not sure why Mio is kind of indifferent about the things Nadia is saying to her, because she never really responds how you'd expect. I'd have assumed she'd be in full agreement with her, especially given her immediate dislike of being appointed an officer and how really she treated Miyabi. Even the look on her face can go either one of two ways. It's either a loss because she doesn't know what her purpose is in all this because she's an officer, or if she's unsure if how she originally felt was right and if she really should have treated Miyabi like she did. But the best segment, this main segment, is the big sunset or sunrise scene when Mio and Miyabi played together after a large battle. Unlike many scenes prior, even though this setting is more simple, it still introduces a very unique visual approach to give something fresh to look at, while still having a very grounded origin, but still being able to feel that wonder when it happens on screen. But the even bigger wonder is in the dialogue. When Mio claims that the job of the officer is just a waste and that no matter what they do, what's the point? Because the others are collecting life out there and being of real use to the colony, as she puts it. And while Mio's over here just struggling and being annoyed or frustrated, Miyabi is just full smiles as she just receives Mio's frustration with ease. She responds saying that she feels their use is obvious and that after death is where they only truly contribute, referring to their lifeline being given. Mio asks, isn't that just pointless? They could be playing like their life depends and nobody would see them, to which Miyabi swiftly challenges her, essentially saying, oh yeah? And Mio angrily doubles down, and Miyabi had to ask if she's doing it for accommodation or recognition. And Miyabi is so smooth this whole time. Of course, Mio says she's just doing it for duty, but this gives Miyabi the perfect chance for the killer. Miyabi opens up saying she was glad she was born a klutz. Of course, Mio says she only thinks it's because she's scared, but Miyabi admits she's afraid, but not afraid to fight, but to take other people's lives, and that it's surprising that it's so easy for other people. And of course, this makes Mio falter a bit, like saying, oh, I guess I'm the bad guy then. But she just said it's natural because the way they live to fight. But Miyabi becomes even more amazing because she's the very first person to say they just fight to live because they have to. Nobody in this chronological period of time has ever said that as we know it. Not even Krista Noah, who had a different way of expressing expressing the reality of the world to him. Of course, Noah was able to come to this conclusion and said it in chapter 2, but as far as timeline goes, Miyabi said it first. But she never uses that to demean Mio. It's more like she had this epiphany and is teaching her. I mean, the way it even makes it look like she's visually taller than her says that too. And then one of the most epic and incredible things I've ever seen in a Xenoblade game happens, and it's not even a fight scene. Miyabi brings up that at the end of the day, the motes of life they give off when they die all feel the same. Although each is different in nature given the lives exuded from them, they're all the same kinds of being. And after that, she mentions how the only way they could truly contribute is like this. The music starts to rise, it starts to trickle and tingle, and then it swells and more motes just rise up into the sky, more than we've ever seen. And she just perfectly plays the agony and off-singing tune in a score we haven't heard this section of before ever. The confidence, the openness, the passion, the heart, the willingness to challenge the world and spread her wisdom, finishing off her score saying, it's not a waste at all as long as those voices speak to you. This tells the player that similar to when Noah heard Mobius K's voice from the moat, Miyabi is so in tune with the spirits of the people and connected to the real world of Ionios that she can always hear them, leaving Mio wondering what these voices she's talking about is. And then the absolute perfect icing on the cake that actually hit super hard and made me choke up a little bit. I'm capping a lot. To bring back around how Nadia was shown to have been crying over her friend, who I assume is the other girl that called her for the meeting the day before, says this.
Miyabi! Thanks, guys!
That man hit me different. This is what I mean about the true meaning and importance, the beauty and brilliance of the Offseer in this world and thematic purpose of Xenoblade 3. And this is even a huge callback to what Taion said in chapter 3, but an expansion of it. Taion mentions that he feels the Offseer system was something to give solace to those that survive, that their dead friends are passing on peacefully even if the survivors don't know where they end up going, but believes that they are passing on peacefully even if they do not know. And even for the people that don't believe in it, the fact that it's there is enough. And that's where I think this scene brings about a whole new meaning to what Taion said there. It shows the fact that even if people don't care about it or don't appreciate what the officers do, the fact that when you're in pain and suffering over the death of somebody close to you, if you didn't care about what they do or believe in what they did before, you're going to appreciate and love that they were there for you now. And that's exactly what happens with Nadia, and that's exactly what drives home all of Miyabi's points to Mio, without Miyabi needing to say a single other word. But at the end of the day, this is all why Miyabi is incredible, and this scene is top tier free. Incredible. And then chapter 7. But I'm not even gonna draw this out. The scene that won for chapter 7 is Time Moves Again, also known as the final scene in the game when the world split back apart. Do I even need to say why this was chosen? A bit ago, I did a video called ranking every vocal song in Xenoblade Chronicles. Check that out if you haven't, the link is below. And I won't spoil where the song Where We Belong was, but you can imagine where it was. Now this song is incredible and does so much for this ending. It represents a perfectly bittersweet farewell, which is exactly what this ending is. A pretty upbeat tone, but a very sweet and mellow vocal execution that just really allows you to do exactly what the cast is doing. Enjoy the nice sweet talks where they give much appreciation to their partners, teasing each other or ensuring the other stays well, wishing them all the absolute best, because of course after all that fighting they just can't stay together, and it's just so sad. However, as sad as it is, they never lose hope that they'll see each other again. It's not hope, it's faith. And in regards to presentation, not only do we have the obligatory Xenoblade ending sunset/sunrise, but I love the way they show the Ouroboros pairs in their own unique way, but also sharing some similarities. And let's not forget the Noah and Mio kiss that's on screen with no cutaways or hiding, and we get our reward for their wonderful storytelling. They deserved it. Great finale, great way to close them out. And of course this scene has so many other great aspects to it, like the convo between the main cast, Monica, Gondor, Melia, and Nia, and the latter of those two is just incredible. The beautiful blue sky and the view of the worlds, the last messages of learning and wisdom the characters obtain from their progressions, all well deserved. Melia and Nia's final prompting of their desires and probing their hearts, Noah's slight wavering and then firm resolve. I honestly didn't even start tearing up till the moments when the worlds were splitting apart and they were trying to run to each other. Man, that got me. After seeing their faces trying to fight back the sadness, then only seeing their mouths, they just couldn't take it anymore and just started running towards each other. And what really set me over the edge was their final goodbye. Not only Taion falling to his knees, but when Noah and Mio said this to each other.
One day, I'll come see you, I promise.
Me too! One day! I promise!
And it mainly hit me so hard, not just because it was precious, but it took me all the way back to this other special ending, Kingdom Hearts 1's. Quick Kingdom Hearts 1 ending spoiler. I'll show you where to skip to in the video so you don't get spoiled.
Kyrie, remember what you said before? I'm always with you too. I'll come back to you. I promise. I know you will.
Don't get me wrong, Mio's response was fantastic. Not to play the comparison game, but something about Kyrie's confident, I know you will, just hits so hard. Even though they both do, it was still a wonderful response, and what a way to close out chapter 7. I wouldn't have it any other way. And just like I said before, we're gonna double time through these honorable mentions. This is the last thing in the video. For chapter 1, we have Clash and Mio's diary. Clash because the fight choreography, the foreshadowing moments, and Chronicles dialogue are all great. Mio's diary because not only is the setting gorgeous, but the setup connecting Mio and Noah together at this point, not even as a couple, but as new companions in this goal, is still fresh and doesn't feel forced in their dynamic, which I feel isn't easy at all to do in storytelling. For chapter 2, yeah, I have none. Keep going. For chapter 3 is a scene called What Doesn't Kill You, and if you don't know this scene, it's a scene where Taion opens up to Lance about his issue with his own confidence. A great scene, and setting it right after a scene with Eunie was great, not only to further push the focus of Taion's characterization in this chapter, but also to ensure their attention to not just develop the group dynamic with their Ouroboros partners, but all of them as a whole, because it's not just about the duos, it's about all 6 of them and what they represent. For chapter 4, it's the scene's Annihilation event and the Annihilator activates. The former because, did you see the fight choreography between them and their Ouroboros forms against P&O, switching who had the lead and who didn't, not once letting up until they killed them. Then their deep talk over the reasoning behind Etho and Kamaravi's action. Very capable of winning the best, but didn't quite stack up. And then the Annihilator activates, we get to see Eunie with Taion help stomp Mobius, D and J. Greatness. For chapter 5, we have Colony Theta of old because not only do we get a center focus shift, but it highlights aspects of her we wouldn't have even considered up to this point, and it hurts every single one of us. A Seaside Rest because, man, that dialogue between Taion and Mio, not only is it different, but it's so good, bro. Taion has such amazing scenes, so does Mio. Then Mio's Resolve because the way she spit bars at Gondor was hot, and not to mention the VA did excellent. And of course, the final scene of chapter 5 in the prison, but specifically the night section right before Mio's execution, you know, the My Noah scene basically. Not even just for that part, but Noah's breakdown, Eunie's tears, Taion's anger, Mio's pure contentment and ease of revealing her true feelings finally. For chapter 6, there's Sword of the End because Noah finally pulling out that sword and ends collapse due to Mio revealing M's heart was pure cinema. Then also we have helping out with repairs because we get more Taion and Eunie being adorable and the absolute best characters in the game. Then in chapter 7 we have Regret and Hope and meeting Queen Melia. The former because the part of that scene where Mio puts a nail in N's coffin saying M wished he could go back to the name Noah and wished he could call her by the name Mio absolutely flashbanged me. Like, that was stunning. What a brilliant, ingenious line that even with how unrelenting N was, even he was taken aback by it. Then for meeting Queen Melia, I mean, of course, it's Melia, of course. But yeah, that will be it. What a game, man. So many fantastic scenes. Let me know what you guys think and let me know what scene in this game you particularly like, or maybe your favorite scene of each chapter. If you can do that, I challenge you to do it in the comments. And if you can't, then that's fine too. Just pick a scene and talk about it, talk about what you like about it, and we can shoot the breeze in the comments section again. If you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe so we can pass 3K by the end of July. This is the challenge. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.